So one of the things that I try to do in every single video is bring you more facts to address the issues that we're currently facing, but also fill you in on some of the good news that could potentially be coming. Well, today I want to fill you in on some additional bad news because again, we've been lied to, not just by certain people, but more organizations. For example, the Federal Reserve, I have some news there because the Federal Reserve has been lying to us. Now, they are giving us the facts and they're giving us the answers and what's actually happening, but they're not addressing that in the news. They are putting it on their website, which most people would never look at. I did. We're also going to talk about some problems regarding student loan forgiveness. And these problems are going to have to be answered to by President Biden. So I want to address what's going on in there as well. All I ask is if you enjoy these daily uploads, do me a favor, go ahead, hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's get started. Now, the first thing I want to go over is what is happening with the Federal Reserve. Now, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but yesterday, the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell stated that there will be pain for households and businesses due to the Federal Reserve's actions. Because what we learned yesterday is the Federal Reserve is not going to stop raising rates. They have to continue to raise rates until inflation gets back down to a more manageable level, which they say is 2%. This means that everybody, you, me, our friends, our family, our loved ones, everybody is going to be impacted. But there's something else that the Federal Reserve has been doing that I think a lot of people have completely missed. I didn't look into this until just recently. But here's what's happening. Back in June, the Federal Reserve said they'd be selling, I think, $47.5 billion in securities each month. And they're going to break this down. They're going to sell off $30 billion in treasury bonds, and they're going to sell $17.5 billion in mortgage-backed securities. That's not exactly what's happening. In July, the Fed's plan again was to sell $30 billion in treasuries, in treasury bonds. But they only sold $10 billion. So instead of selling $17.5 billion in mortgage-backed securities, guess what? They bought an additional $3 billion. And then we go from July to August. The Fed, they only reduced their securities by $20 billion. $20 billion. That's not even half of the $47.5 billion that they promised that they were going to get rid of. Now here's the problem. And I don't want to put all this on the Federal Reserve because it's not all on them, but the Federal Reserve said they're going to sell $47.5 billion. That was their promise. The problem here is in order to sell something, you have to have a buyer. You cannot sell something if you do not have somebody to give you money to buy it from you. So that is the problem. Right now, even though the Federal Reserve says they are going to do this, quantitative tightening is something that they have to do. Well, the problem is there's so much uncertainty right now in every economy, not just here in the US. You got China, you got other countries as well. And again, some of the money that's being invested into the US, it's not just from taxpayers. It's not just from corporations. It's from other countries as well. Guess what? Other countries, they're struggling in their own right. So you think they really want to invest into the US? Not really. So for the Federal Reserve to come out and say, yeah, we are going to sell, the problem is if there's nobody to buy, that's an issue. So it's not just that we're going to raise rates. And honestly, for the Fed, they're committed to quantitative tightening, but the only real power that they have right now is to continue raising rates. That's it. So outside of that, the economy is actually going to dictate the moves that they can make. So keep that in mind. The Federal Reserve has been somewhat lying to us, but at the same time, right now, the Federal Reserve has very limited moves. They can raise rates. That's about it. So if you think that the Federal Reserve is going to do everything they can to make sure we do not go into a deep, deep recession, Well, you've probably been misled because the Federal Reserve does not have very many tools up their sleeve. There's not a lot of things that they can do, and that's creating a lot of issues throughout the rest of this economy and the rest of the world as well. So I'll keep you updated on that as we get more information, but just understand the Federal Reserve is very limited with what they can do. So chances are we are going to continue to see very high numbers as far as inflation for quite some time. Now, the other thing that happened this week, I addressed this Tuesday, I addressed it Monday, I think I addressed it Sunday night as well. But President Biden was supposed to come out and cancel up to $10,000 in student debt. He did exactly that. President Biden came out on Wednesday and he announced $10,000 in student debt forgiveness. But there's some problems. First, he said anybody that makes less than $125,000 per year, or couples making less than $250,000 per year, can get a full $10,000 in student loan forgiveness, or up to $20,000 for Pell Grants. And this income goes off of either 2020 or 2021. You can pretty much pick, but as long as you made less than either 125 as an individual or 250 as a couple, you would qualify. There's some problems here. First, there's, and you've probably seen the reports, you've probably seen it's been all over the news, but there are 13 states that are potentially going to tax you for this loan forgiveness. Now, just understand, even though there's 13 states as of today, as of August 27th, just understand I think every single state is looking into ways to get out of this, where their residents do not have to pay taxes on the amount that was forgiven, because federally, the government has already done that, where you do not have to pay any taxes, okay? Which is different than in previous years, where if you get a debt forgiven, okay, it's canceled, you actually have to pay taxes on that amount that was forgiven, because that is essentially income given to you. All right? So that's the first thing. And as we get more information on which states are potentially going to tax people for getting this forgiveness, I will bring you that update as soon as possible. Here's the other problem. Yesterday, close to 100, I think it was like 90, 93 and 97 Republicans, both in the House and the Senate, they actually wrote to Nancy Pelosi, and they asked her to step in and get President Biden to back his claim that he can legally forgive up to $10,000 in student loan debt. Because really, he's forgiving this debt for no reason other than to provide relief. Now, we've seen it over the past year where President Biden and the Education Department, they forgive, let's say $1 billion for college debt, for student debt, for certain people from certain colleges because they were defrauded. Now, he has the ability to do that. He has the legal standing. But in this case, there is no reason to forgive student debt other than to provide relief. Now, again, I'm happy for the people that got this relief that actually need it. But what about those that paid off their debts? What about those that are going to go and get a loan very soon, right? There's been nothing done for those people. But Republicans, now obviously, and I don't want to come out and say, oh yeah, Democrats, they did the wrong thing. I think they did what they tried to do for years. But here's the issue. Now, Republicans aren't going to be happy no matter what. But one of the reasons why Republicans are not happy is because this idea was previously looked into not by the Biden administration. This was actually looked into by the Trump administration. And at that time, the Education Department Secretary Betsy DeVos, she stated that former President Donald Trump doesn't have the legal authority, nor does she, to forgive student debt of that size to that many people. And earlier in 2021, Nancy Pelosi said the exact same thing, that President Biden, the president, at that time and currently still is the president, he doesn't have the legal authority, nor does the Education Department Secretary Miguel Cardona. He doesn't have the power to forgive that kind of debt. This responsibility all falls on Congress. And so that's what these 100 or close to 100 lawmakers are asking, is for Nancy Pelosi to step in and say that no, he cannot do that, but let's take it over to Congress and let's see what happens with Congress. Can Congress forgive up to $10,000 in student debt? Now, I just want to throw this out there, okay? Because this is something that has been brought up multiple times. And this was something that former President Donald Trump was trying to do something very similar, but former President Donald Trump was planning on giving a card out to people on Social Security, right? And to help them afford, medication, I believe. Now, we didn't know exactly how much that card was going to be. It was being talked about, but he was planning on just sending out that card to millions and millions of households. I think about like 60 million people would have got one. They'd get this card, they can go and use it. However, that money would probably be clawed back at some point. But it would most likely take months to get the cards out, and then Congress would probably fight it, Democrats would fight it, and then they'd say no, they scrap the idea, right? Well, this is kind of what is being talked about now is the Biden administration has canceled up to $10,000 in student debt forgiveness, student debt relief, right? But here's the thing. We may not see this debt come off the books. You may not see that, okay, your balance went from $8,000 to zero, okay, all of a sudden. This may take until January of 2023 or even later before it comes off. And so what many people are speculating is this really going to happen, or is the Biden administration playing more games? Is the education department playing more games to try to win more votes in the upcoming midterm election? And it's possible. It is honestly possible. And I know multiple people here in the comments have said the exact same thing. And honestly, I don't think you're far off. I think there's a chance that yes, the Biden administration and President Biden himself doesn't have the legal authority. It can only be done through Congress. And if that's the case, then you may have been given a promise that isn't going to happen. So just keep that in mind. But I want to touch on one other thing. Because what happens now? Hey, what happens? Because school's starting up again. Colleges are opening back up. People are going back to school, right? Then the next quarter is going to start. Well, what happens to those people that go and get student loans now? Or within the next few weeks or few months? Do they get relief? The answer is no. Because it had to be before July 1st of 2022. But here's where many lawmakers are extremely upset. This is not just Republicans. This is Democrats as well. Both are very upset because this loan forgiveness did nothing to fix the underlying problem. Student loans are still going to be taken out. Colleges are still going to charge ridiculous tuitions. And the federal government just backed them up. Pretty much said, charge whatever you want because guess what? We can forgive this debt. So instead of making college cheaper to make it, especially moving forward, to make it easier for certain families to go and get a higher education, the federal government just saddled the U.S. taxpayers with an additional about $2,100 in debt because of this forgiveness. So that kind of has me a little bit upset. It's not because people got additional relief. That's great. I think that's great. The problem is, don't lie to the American people and say, no, this isn't going to cost you anything extra. It will. It's going to cost us extra. We have to pay this off. The other thing that the Biden administration is doing is they are lying to the American people that they just forgave this debt, so it's going to make it easier for everybody. No, it's not. It's not going to make it easier. Because yes, it makes it easier that you don't got to make these payments anymore, or their payments come down, they're less expensive. That's great. The problem is, what about those people that are still going to college, that still have this debt? What about them? The money isn't coming off. It doesn't make college any cheaper moving forward. It's still going to be just as expensive, if not more expensive, because of inflation. So we're going to see what happens there. But honestly, we are being lied to all over the place. We're being lied to by our current administration. We're being lied to by Democrats. We're being lied to by Republicans. We're being lied to by people that say they don't really have an affiliation, right? Being lied to by the Federal Reserve. The lies just keep coming and coming and coming. So again, I try to tell you guys what's actually happening, provide you with the facts. Okay? But this is what's happening. We got a lot of issues here. We got a lot of issues to deal with. And I don't think these issues are going to go away. I don't think they are going to be resolved before the midterm elections. I think this is going to be a continuing problem. So again, as we get more information on what's going on there, I promise I will fill you in on all the latest news and updates. Again, just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.